stood in the dimly lit kitchen, the smell of burnt toast wafting through the air. But it was the knot in my stomach that burned more painfully than anything else. My brother had managed to make it worse. He threw the last bit of our grandmother's precious jewelry on the table, not caring that my hands were shaking as I picked them up. The diamond-studded brooch, a family heirloom, glinted in the harsh light, reminding me of all the moments when our family, once close-knit, turned into a battleground. I could still hear the harsh words from our last family dinner echoing in my head. "Why do you get to keep everything?" I had shouted, jaw set tight, watching my brother smirk, that infuriating expression plastered across his face. "You think just because you came first, you deserve the inheritance more than us. Mom always favored you. Get a grip," he had shot back, his voice dripping with mockery. "It's not my fault you're the unserious daughter." I remembered my father's glare, disappointment flickering in his eyes, and how my mother had remained silent, probably regretting ever inviting us to reconcile over family dinner. Now, standing there with the jewelry in hand, I felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. I needed a plan, a way to show him just how unfair he was being and how he had taken advantage of the family's difficult times. After all, my brother had never lifted a finger to help through the years we struggled with the bills, while I took on 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. I went pale just thinking about how we had pulled together to manage when our father lost his job, and how he didn't even care to remember, reflecting back on it. I had always felt like the outcast. It was always me asking for a simple bit of acknowledgement for my efforts, and him always there to shut me down. Even that day, as we went through our grandmother's belongings, he had scoffed at the very idea of sharing anything equally. He waltzed into the house like a king, rifling through the memories and treasures without a second thought to how this might affect us. "Am I just supposed to let you walk all over me?" I muttered furiously under my breath, clutching the heirloom tighter. "What are you whispering about?" My brother had that look again, the one that made every raised eyebrow feel like daggers shot directly at me. "Nothing, just thinking about how unfair you are," I replied, my voice cracking slightly, betraying the frustration I tried to mask. How could he not see the harm he was causing? It was as if I was talking to a wall. "I am the favored one, Amelia," he said, twisting the knife deeper with a smug grin. "Don't forget that. You should be grateful I'm even letting you have a piece of this." His arrogance made my blood boil. He had the audacity to flaunt our family's history and the fact that he was firstborn, as if that somehow justified everything. I needed him to understand. I had to make a statement. But I didn't want any more confrontations to turn into all-out war. I wanted to find out his vulnerabilities, something I could leverage without putting myself in the line of fire yet again. "Whatever," I said, forcing a yawn to break the tension. "It's fine. You keep the jewelry. But remember this, how you act now will reflect on you later. I won't forget." I stormed past him, leaving the kitchen loaded with tension. The door swung shut behind me, and I could hear his dismissive laughter echo through the house. Silently, I made my way into the living room. My thoughts swirled around in confusion. Should I let it go? Should I fight back harder? A part of me craved revenge, not just for myself, but for all the years I had spent in his shadow. I had been the dutiful daughter doing everything our parents expected while he lived carefree, without any serious consequences. Why should I play fair when he woe? I thought bitterly. Just then, the doorbell rang, cutting through my spiraling thoughts. I knew the sound all too well. It was our father. He always came home later than everyone else. Today was no different, but I felt apprehensive about how I would face him after all that had happened. Clenching my fists, I gathered my strength and moved to answer the door. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked as I opened the door, noticing my distress. The concerned look on his face made my throat tighten. I couldn't afford a breakdown in front of him, not when I felt so raw and eaten away by jealousy and rage at my brother. "It's nothing," I replied, but the truth lingered heavily in the air. "Are you sure? I heard you and your brother arguing when I came in." His voice was calm, but I could hear the undercurrent of worry that swirled beneath it. "It's just family stuff," I said. My heart raced as I felt the walls closing in, collapsing under the weight of expectations and secrets. "Amelia, we both know there is more to this," he pressed gently, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "Talk to me." For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of how to voice my feelings and fears. But just as I opened my mouth to respond, a car pulled up outside. I turned in surprise and saw my brother heading outside with an envelope in his hands. He looked like he was about to burst with excitement. "Another surprise inheritance," I shouted out mockingly, feeling a surge of resentment bubbling inside me again. "How lucky for you. Look who's talking," he shot back, hurrying past the window as I felt my blood run cold. What could possibly be in that envelope? My heart raced, feeling the weight of the secrets that had begun to unravel. And with that, I realized it was time to take my shot. This was finally going to be my moment for revenge, and I would make sure my brother felt every ounce of betrayal he had dished out. My thoughts swirled, and I knew deep down the fire for revenge had only begun to stoke. The glimmer of that brooch now served as a permanent reminder of my determination. I was going to unleash a storm, starting with what was hidden in that envelope. And I would emerge victorious. I stood there, heart racing, as the gravity of what my sister had just revealed crashed over me like a tidal wave. The words, "You're cut off," echoed painfully in my mind, each syllable twisting the knife deeper. Could it really be true? My mind replayed the family dinner from a week ago, my brother's confident smirk, my sister's dismissive laughter, and the way my mother's eyes had glinted with approval every time they mocked the struggle I faced to pay my bills. I felt anger rise in my throat, hot and bitter. They had been so dismissive, acting like a $200 contribution to my rent was some grand sacrifice on their part. They thought their wealth made them untouchable, but I felt a storm brewing inside me, one that whispered that maybe it was time to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. "Why, though?" My voice cracked slightly, struggling to mask the disbelief swelling within me. I thought we were all on the same team. I didn't even know I was a burden until now. I crossed my arms, trying to hold myself together while I felt unanchored. The table felt sturdier than I did as my mind raced through all the moments they had belittled my struggles. Despite my best efforts to keep it together, I could feel tears welling up, but I blinked them away. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. My sister rolled her eyes at me as if I was simply being dramatic, which sent a jolt of fire through my veins. Mom and Dad have worked hard for what they have. It is not my fault you can't seem to get your life together. Her voice dripped with condescension, like honey mixed with poison. My father scoffed in agreement, shaking his head, and that nearly sent me over the edge. Seriously, I sputtered, staring into the cold eyes of my brother who, until this moment, I had thought might understand. You all think I deserve nothing after everything I've tried to do. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could see my grandfather, too frail to say anything, his weathered hands resting firmly on the table. He had always been my advocate, the one person who seemed to appreciate the effort I put into everything I did. When I turned to him, searching for some glimmer of understanding in those deep-set eyes, he glanced away. In that moment, I went pale, feeling my insides twist uncomfortably. The betrayal cut deeper than any argument could. I was not only fighting against my family's disdain, but also against losing the only person who acknowledged my worth. Look, Amelia, my mother finally intervened, her voice saccharine yet firm. This is not about you. You know we cannot keep bailing you out. You have to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. Her tone was patronizing, delivering what was meant to be tough love, but felt more like a well-aimed blow to my pride. It's unfair. It really is, I managed to say, my hands shaking as I clenched them into fists on the table. Do you even realize what it feels like to be treated like you're some sort of failure? I have tried, and yet all I get is mocked. My sister shrugged, her body language radiating indifference. Maybe if you hadn't dropped out of that college you were attending, you wouldn't be in this situation then. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. Was she really going there? That had been a dark time for me, a spiral of anxiety that I barely managed to climb out of. You think that makes it okay? I spat at her, becoming more animated. You think digging at my past somehow legitimizes this betrayal? My brother leaned back in his chair, a smirk growing on his face. Face it, Amelia. You are the family loser, always have been. The words hit me like a slap. I could feel tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, but I blinked them away, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. I realized then, staring back at their smug expressions, that they believed they were safe behind their wealth and privilege, too blinded by their own arrogance to comprehend the depth of their cruelty. Suddenly, the air felt thick with tension as I caught my grandfather's weary gaze again. I swallowed hard, summoning every ounce of strength to counter the growing despair. You know what? You all will regret this, every single one of you. The words slipped out before I could think them through, but they rang with a truth that astonished even me. In that moment, it became clear I was done being the family doormat. I had spent too long trying to gain their approval, and here they were, attempting to throw me aside. My voice grew steadier as I continued. You think you can just cut me off and forget about me. I am more than your charity case. You will see what it feels like to be on the receiving end of betrayal." Their expressions froze, my father's jaw clenched, my sister stared wide-eyed, and my brother's smug smile faltered, just for a moment. They had underestimated me, taken my perseverance for granted. Perhaps they did not realize who they were dealing with. I was no longer the little sister who would let them walk all over her. Yet, as I turned away from the table, the battle waging within me shifted focus. The bitterness brewed into a more potent resolve. I would plan my revenge. I would stand up for myself and show them what it truly meant to be cut off. I would rise in a way they never expected, and this time it would not simply be a dream. It would be my reality. As anger surged in my chest, I took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. I stood in the dim light of my living room, the echoes of the family dinner still ringing in my ears. The anger that had simmered throughout the night transformed into a boiling rage that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I could still see my father's face as he announced that my brother would be inheriting the family property, the house I had grown up in, while I was getting nothing, absolutely nothing. I was betrayed, cut off, mocked. After the way I had supported him through his financial struggles, it felt like a stab to the heart. How could he, the man who had always told me that family sticks together, turn around and favor my brother so openly? I paced back and forth, my heart racing. This was not just about the inheritance. It was about being undervalued, overlooked, and disregarded. My father always tabulated love by dollars and cents. I had needed to be stronger. I thought about my brother, lounging in our old living room, his smirk permanent as he reveled in his golden boy status. I squeezed my fists, feeling my nails dig into my palms. I felt powerless, but I knew that I could not let this feeling linger. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. My mind raced with ideas, each one darker than the last. Revenge was not something I had ever pictured myself plotting. Maybe it was the desperation, or maybe it was the thrill of reclaiming my place in our family story. I needed to devise a plan that wasn't just about getting back at them, but about reclaiming my worth. I needed to show them that I wouldn't let myself be pushed aside so easily. I opened my notes app and typed out the plan. Step 1, gather information. The thought sent a thrill through me. I could not pretend that I was okay with how things had played out. The way my grandfather had looked at me with pity, his face pale as he tried to comfort me during dinner, made my stomach twist. "You will always have us, dear," he had said. But obviously, that had not been enough. In that moment, I decided I was going to dig up any secrets regarding my brother's finances. He had taken risky investments before that had almost ruined him. If I could leverage something against him, it might put the balance of power back in my favor. "Amelia," my sister's voice broke through my thoughts. She stepped into the living room, her expression tight with concern. "Are you okay? I saw you leave the table." Mom was worried. I turned to face her, my mind still racing. "I'm fine," I said, but my voice cracked just a little too much. Her eyes narrowed as she studied me. "You scared me. I know that things got heated, but what?" I interrupted, my voice rising a notch. Do you think I can just sit by while they hand everything to him on a silver platter? I won't let that happen. She took a step back, clearly taken aback by my sudden intensity. I get it, it's unfair. But don't you think you're overreacting? Maybe we can talk to Dad. Get him to see things clearly. I shook my head, feeling the gravity of the situation more than ever. He's as set in his ways as he's ever been. You know it. If I want to change things, I have to take action myself. No more sitting idly by. The silence hung between us, heavy and charged. My sister finally sighed, her shoulders drooping as if she had resigned herself to my decision. Okay, but where do you even start? I smiled, a dark sense of satisfaction washing over me. I know he has other accounts, ones that no one knows about. I've heard the way he talks to our father about investments and future moves. My heart raced as I imagined the possibilities. I could be the hero of my own story. Yet, there was also a nagging sense of dread at what I was planning. My sister's brows furrowed. That's risky, though. If you get caught, it could ruin everything. Or it could set me free, I said, my voice steady. The family dynamics will have to shift. All my life, I let my father dictate my self-worth, and it stops here. I could see the conflict on her face. She was worried about me, worried that I was venturing into dangerous waters. But I was determined. This was about more than just money. It was about respect. I need your help, I continued. You can act as my eyes and ears around the house. Keep watch for anything unusual. If I can gather enough information before I confront him, then maybe I'll have leverage. She hesitated, then nodded cautiously. Okay, I will. But just be careful, all right? Of course, I said, waving her off dismissively, even though my heart thumped like a drum in my chest. As I sat back down, the weight of the plan pressed heavily on my shoulders. It was going to take everything I had to pull this off. I welcomed the challenge, even as fear curled in the pit of my stomach. Then it hit me. The real estate documents were at my father's office. If I could sneak in there and find any discrepancies, it would not just empower me. It could expose the favoritism that had poisoned our family dynamic for too long. I made a list of things I needed to retrieve, my heart racing at the thought of the confrontation that lay ahead. At that moment, I swore this was just the beginning. The fear would not win. I would face whatever came next head on. I had taken the first step of my revenge plan in motion, and I felt exhilarated by it. This was my chance not only to gain what I felt I deserved, but to reclaim my place in the family. Nothing could prepare me for the chaos that was about to unfold. I was just about to turn away when the door swung open, revealing my father in the doorway, his face ashen, as though the years of tension were suffocating him. I felt my heart race, pounding out a wild rhythm of anxiety and anger. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the execution of the plan we had meticulously crafted over the past few weeks. I could feel every emotion swirling within me, a whirlwind of determination, betrayal, and vindication. You think you can just walk in here after everything? I spat, my voice barely containing the betrayal that coursed through me like poison. He stepped inside, sweeping a glance around the dimly lit living room filled with the relics of our family's history. I focused on his face, looking for any sign of remorse or guilt. "I came to talk, Amelia," he said, but the shaky breath following his words fell flat. He stepped further into the room, and I saw my brother linger at the threshold, a worried expression etched across his face. The tension was palpable, a thick fog surrounding us that threatened to suffocate anything resembling resolution. "Talk. You think after what you did, we can just sit down and talk?" I demanded, my hands clenching into fists at my sides, the adrenaline surging through my veins. I felt suddenly powerful, like I was standing on a precipice, ready to take a leap of faith to reclaim my dignity. "Just give me a chance, please," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I was trying to protect you." I laughed bitterly, memories washing over me of all the times I felt favored or discarded. "Protect me by cutting me off from everything, protecting me by lying to me. You don't even know what it means to be a father," I shot back, my heart pounding even harder. I could see my brother shrinking back slightly, probably anticipating the fallout of this confrontation. But I couldn't stop now. I was on a roll, and my emotions were leading the charge. "You don't understand what you're throwing away. What mother sacrificed," he exclaimed, and I almost recoiled at the name that had once brought me comfort, now a weapon wielded against me. My mother's memory had been twisted into a tool he used against us. "Sacrifice? You mean the money? The inheritance you made sure we would never see? Is that it? You want to hold on to the past, but what about my future?" My voice shook with the weight of my words, but I pressed on. "You know about the trust fund. You know we deserve to have it for ourselves." In an act of defiance, I stepped closer, refusing to back down. The determination bloomed within me. This was about reclaiming what was rightfully ours, a fight for respect, for acknowledgement, and for my mother's honor, even if only in spirit. "You've mocked us with your decisions, treated us like we were nothing but burdens. Well, I'm done being treated like I don't matter. This isn't just about money. It's about acknowledging the truth," I said, my voice stronger now, surging with the rightness of my cause. Just as I braced for a retort, my brother jumped in, stepping cautiously into the charged conversation. "There is so much to lose here. You could really ruin everything, all for revenge." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of what had been sacrificed on our fractured family altar. I could see the fear in his eyes, the panic of someone standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering dangerously. I turned my focus back to my father and realized he was not just any man at that moment. He was the embodiment of every lie that had been told, every betrayal that had been felt. Ruining everything. What you call family is built on lies and favoritism. "I won't be quiet anymore," I declared, feeling strength coursing through me like a fire igniting within my chest. The revelation of my mother's hidden will suddenly surfaced in my mind, a dagger to thrust into this festering wound we called a family. "You wanted me to be the quiet daughter, the obedient one who stands aside while you take everything. Well, surprise, I'm not going along with your plan. You cut me off for years, and now the inheritance is finally being revealed to me. You won't profit from this betrayal any longer," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls as I leaned forward, challenging him to respond. He looked at me, his jaw working as though he was searching for something, anything that would help him gain ground in this fight. But your mother wanted you to have the life you needed, not what? I interrupted, my face flushed with determination. Not like the life you gave us. Is that why you kept it a secret? You knew I deserved that money, and you wanted to keep it for yourself. My hands were shaking as anger surged through me, and I could hardly contain it. What's this money worth if it is rooted in lies? The silence stretched between us, taut as a bowstring ready to snap. I could see doubt flickering in his eyes. The confrontation had reached a boiling point, and it was incredibly satisfying to see the facade of authority he wore begin to crack, revealing a glimpse of the man who felt inadequate, resentful, and afraid. You think this is easy for me, he finally said, his voice breaking. You think none of this hurts me. You are my daughter. You think that gives you a pass on your actions. You think it was easy for me to figure everything out. I am done choosing your side when you never chose mine. I breathed heavily, my heart racing fast as I caught my brother's eye. Just as I was about to speak again, I heard it a gasp from behind me, causing my breath to hitch. I turned, and there she was, my sister, standing in the hallway, face pale as a ghost. The tension thickened, a sudden clarity dawning on me as I realized the air was heavy with secrets that had just been laid bare. Did I miss something? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her wide eyes darting between us. The confrontation had just taken a dramatic turn that neither I nor my father had anticipated. The note of betrayal hung like a storm cloud above us, and I knew that whatever came next would change everything. I could feel the shift in the room, the balance of power teetering, as we all took a step closer to the abyss of chaos we had all danced around for too long. Was this the moment we had all feared, or the moment that would finally free us? I stood in the kitchen, the smell of burnt toast mixing with the tension that hung thick in the air. The family dinner felt like a setup for disaster. My father had finally agreed to gather everyone for what he called a family meeting. I had spent the last few days going over everything in my head, how my brother had mocked me for years, how my father had favored him, and how I had felt so utterly betrayed by my sister when she sided with him. My stomach twisted in knots. We had all felt the uneasiness brought on by our grandfather's will, where my brother blatantly received more of the inheritance. As soon as my father stepped inside the kitchen, he clapped his hands together, bringing my family to attention. All right, everyone, let's sit down and talk this through like adults. He lacked the authority I remembered, and I could feel my voice cracking as I said what I needed to say. What you did to me was unfair. My brother crossed his arms, his brow furrowing as he shot back. You're just mad because you didn't get what you thought you deserved. The words felt like knives slicing into me, but my hands were shaking, a mixture of anger and resolve. Deserve. I deserved a chance, no matter what you think. You only got favored because you played nice with Grandpa. My sister stood awkwardly at the end of the table, her eyes darting between us. This isn't helping. We need to understand each other better. But I could feel her side with my brother, just like before. They always cut me off, I thought bitterly, like I am not worthy of the family love or support. I felt misunderstood, dismissed, like everything I said was moot. I took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage I had. Maybe this all started the day you decided to mock me for trying. I pointed at my brother. I was working my fingers to the bone, trying so hard to prove I belonged, while you took everything for granted, always getting what you wanted. My father shifted in his seat, his expression strained. Amelia, you need to think about how we got here. Maybe there is a reason for what happened. Your grandfather had favorites, you can't escape that. My heart raced. A reason? You mean favoritism? I won't accept being treated like this anymore. I felt the dam inside me break. All these years, pretending to bond over family dinners and holidays when behind the scenes, betrayal was the real feast. You think I don't see that? I will not sit here anymore feeling like the outsider. I have my own achievements, my own happiness. I don't need to steal from anyone, especially not from you. My brother's expression hardened. You're just looking for sympathy. It's pathetic. I went pale at his words, but something inside me snapped. You think I'm pathetic? Look around. The only pathetic thing here is how this family operates, glorifying betrayal and greed. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air had thickened with unvoiced truths. It was palpable. My sister finally chimed in, her voice shaking. Can't we all agree that this doesn't have to end in fighting? We're family, right? I couldn't help but throw my hands up. Family. You put the fun in dysfunctional. You laugh at my efforts while my brother buries me under the weight of entitlement. My brother's fists tightened, and I could see he was seething. You've always said you were better than me. My cheeks flushed with anger at his words, but I knew I wasn't better. I was just tired of being stepped over. In the fraught silence, my father finally interjected, the authority in his voice closer to a whisper. You are both my children. This fight is pointless. I couldn't help but let out a half-laugh, half-sobbing sound. Pointless? You think our pain is pointless? I learned never to trust you. I turned on my brother, unable to contain myself. You laughed at my ambitions like they were a joke, turning everyone against me.